Danny Phantom could have given us a peak enemy to friends to lovers endgame pairing with Danny and Valerie, as their relationship was one of the best things about the show. Instead, it decided to settle for mediocrity as it stayed committed to Danny Exam, a romance that I didn't find captivating at all. From concept alone, Danny and Valerie had far more going for them, as along with the evolution of their relationship being engaging, there were the parallels of both being teenage ghost hunters with double lives. There's also the fun twist in which Danny learns about Valerie's double life early on, but Valerie doesn't learn until the series finale that Danny Fenton is Danny Phantom. Seriously, people can mock the Clark Kent disguise all they want, but at least there's actual effort put into it. Danny just changed his last name. At the beginning of the series, the two couldn't be more different from each other. Danny was an unpopular teenager who had to deal with bullies, while Valerie was a rich, popular mean girl who was one of the bullies that mocked Danny and his friends. And whereas Danny was burdened with living a double life, Valerie's only concern at the time was looking fashionable and going to concerts. Yet those concerns would soon stop mattering when her life was forever changed by ghosts in the episode Shades of Grey. In the process of chasing after a ghost dog through a high-tech lab, Danny ends up ruining Valerie's father's reputation and getting him fired due to the security that he provided being ineffective. As a result, Valerie's dad would have to sell their house, with him and Valerie now living in a rundown apartment complex. And things would only get worse for Valerie from there, as due to her no longer being rich, her so-called friends kicked her to the curb. In a short period, Valerie went from being on top of the world to losing everything all because of ghosts. This would lead to her developing a hatred for them, something that Danny's arch-foe Vlad Plasmius would enable by supplying her with all the weapons that she would need, with her now setting her sights on a ghost that ruined her life, Danny Phantom. Now while all of this is happening, there's a whole separate plot of Danny feeling guilty over Valerie's life falling apart, since if he could have captured the dog sooner, none of this would have happened. This moment helps showcase that despite Valerie being one of the bullies who gave him a hard time, he never wanted to ruin her life, but things become complicated when he discovers that the mysterious new ghost hunter that's hunting him is Valerie. He attempts to make peace with her near the end of the episode, with him apologizing for what happened to her and explaining that not all ghosts are evil. Yet Valerie rejects his apology, with her still being just as determined to put an end to Phantom. Because of this, we would see Danny's relationship with Valerie become more hostile on both sides of his life, as seen in Life Lessons. When the two get paired together to take care of a soccer flower for health class, neither is happy about it. Danny hates the fact that he's working with the girl that constantly tries to kill him, and Valerie hates the fact that she's being forced to work with someone she sees as a loser. Now, it's important to note that while Valerie herself may no longer be popular, she still carries the arrogance of thinking that she's better than Danny. It also doesn't help matters when Valerie puts the brunt of the assignment onto him, as she explained that she has other things she needs to take care of, which as far as Danny is aware means hunting his ghostly alter ego. But things especially get bad when one of Danny's foes, Skulker, decides to kidnap the two in order to hunt them due to both being worthy prey. Yet Skulker's involvement ends up being a blessing in disguise, as due to needing to work together, it allows for them to get to know each other better. Valerie ends up venting to Phantom about how her life is a mess between her job of hunting ghosts, working a second job to help pay for college, and dealing with a classmate that she sees as an insensitive joke. Granted, I feel like Valerie isn't being completely fair about Danny given how she was treating him, but this moment does highlight how much stress she's been going through due to her double life, which is something that Danny can relate to. After they manage to defeat Skulker, Valerie admits that she may have been wrong about Phantom. She still doesn't fully trust him, but the hatred she has toward him does lessen as a result of this team up. This episode was a huge turning point for their relationship, as there was now less hostility between Valerie and Danny Phantom, but also Danny Fenton. We see the latter occur when he promises not to tell anyone about her embarrassing job of wearing a mascot suit for the Nasty Burger, along with even covering a shift for her so she can get a break. While we don't get to see Valerie's reaction to this gesture, I think it's safe to assume that she appreciated it, with the gesture landing Danny in her good graces. But it would be in Rain Storm where we would see the two officially become friends, along with the seeds of a blossoming romance being planted. This was the episode that sold me on the pairing, as it highlights how good their chemistry is since it showcased the two joking around and looking out for each other. It's pretty easy to see why Valerie would take a liking to Danny, as he has proved himself to be kinder than the people she thought were her friends, with him liking her for who she is as a person rather than her financial status. And with how alone she must have felt, she was probably happy to find herself having a genuine friend, with her now ironically seeing Danny as a cool guy. As for Danny, while it may seem reckless that he would choose to become friends with Valerie, it makes sense given the events of life lessons. Though I also think it ties into something that the show itself has implied several times, that Danny views his alter ego not as an extension of himself, but rather as another person entirely. So it's not Danny Phantom who's getting close to Valerie, but rather Danny Fenton. Sam and Tucker rightfully point out that he's playing with fire by doing this, yet he dismisses his friend's concern as he believes that Valerie won't learn his secret. Now this is pretty dumb on Danny's part, though that's par for the course for him since he tends to not always think things through or think about the consequences of his actions. But this doesn't undermine the fact that Danny is legit okay with lying to Valerie, with there never being a moment in the show in which he even considers telling her the truth. Things are also made worse after he unmasked her in front of her father as Danny Phantom. While he did this to protect her, it was still a betrayal of trust that ruined the goodwill he had earned with Valerie, with her now hating him again. So even though the episode has Valerie and Danny become closer, it also highlights how unstable this relationship is. Though with Valerie now being romantically interested in Danny, it sets her up as a romantic rival for Sam, which yeah, time to talk about the elephant in the room, the Danny and Sam romance.
Can a ghost get frostbite?
Oh, here. My hands are warm.
While Rainstorm explored Danny's and Valerie's relationship with each other, it also showed Sam and Valerie constantly butting heads. Now part of this was due to genuine concern about Danny's safety, along with the fact that she hadn't forgiven Valerie for when she was a bully. But this feud was also still being fueled by jealousy. Now Danny and Sam have been hinted at being endgame as early as the 3rd episode of the show, but by this point in the series, they failed to make me care about it. The two have decent chemistry with each other, and theoretically it should work, but it falls apart due to there being no real progression or exploration of their relationship. Throughout the show, the two are given plenty of romantically coded moments, such as characters constantly calling them a couple and them even having some fake out makeouts, but none of this adds or changes anything about their dynamic. Rainstorm even has a moment in which Danny asks Sam if there's anything she wants to tell him just in case he doesn't make it back from his fight with Pariah Dog, only for her to not confess her feelings for him. And this is the other problem with the romance. There's no in-universe explanation as to why Sam won't confess her feelings for Danny. Is she afraid of being rejected? Does she think that if they date it could ruin their friendship? We have no idea because the show itself never addresses any of this. The show also frames a crush as being mutual, which it technically is, but there's more emphasis on Sam's feeling up until the final season where they really start pushing for this romance. Sam's relationship with Danny is also weirdly underdeveloped. While the two do interact plenty, Sam legit has more screen time with Tucker since most episodes will have a B-plot that involves those two. So not only does her friendship with Tucker feels more developed than her friendship with Danny, but it also has more chemistry as well. Seriously, when I rewatched the show to make these Danny Phantom videos, I did not expect to be shipping Sam and Tucker, but here we are. Valerie may not be the most prominent character in the show, but at least there's a clear evolution of her relationship with Danny rather than it just staying stagnant until the finale. I also just find Valerie to be a more interesting and fleshed out character than Sam, since she just tends to be written as the cool eco-goth girl. It doesn't make her a bad character by any means, as she can be entertaining, but it didn't make her relationship with Danny as engaging to watch compared to Valerie. But unfortunately, Danny and Valerie's relationship storyline would come to its conclusion in Floating with Disaster. This episode makes it clear that Danny and Valerie have crushes on each other, something that Technus uses to his advantage as he decides to play matchmaker so that Danny will be too preoccupied to interfere with his plans of world conquest. But while they may be getting manipulated by Technus, that doesn't erase the genuineness of their relationship as they're clearly enjoying their dates. When Sam and Tucker try to explain to Danny that Technus is playing matchmaker, he laughs it off due to how ridiculous it sounds, but then admits that he might want to be with Valerie, the latter of which is overheard by her. And on the flip side, we see Valerie tell her dad that she's willing to give up ghost hunting due to how much she likes Danny, a revelation that Danny himself overhears. But any chance of something more happening between these two fell apart as Valerie's hatred of ghosts is reaffirmed by seeing Phantom destroying her possessed costume, thinking that's what he intended for her, and later when he breaks into her father's lab before not believing his claims of trying to stop Technus. Because of this, she ends up breaking up with Danny as she explains that her life is too complicated and she doesn't want to see him get hurt because of it. And while Danny is heartbroken over this, we see that Valerie is just as sad about it herself.
Can you hang on to this?
Ugh, right, the ring. While this episode was mainly dedicated to Danny's and Valerie's relationship, it was also used to hammer in how Danny x Sam was endgame, as it had Jack give Danny a class ring for him to give to his crush, who Jack believed was Sam. Yet this ring doesn't become relevant again until the series finale, and it just serves as a reminder about how we were robbed of a much better ship. After this episode, both Valerie and her relationship with Danny become irrelevant. Danny's heartbreak over the breakup is only mentioned once before immediately getting ignored, as in the same episode he gets jealous about Sam hanging out with a new character named Gregor, with the jealousy coming out of nowhere. As for Valerie, she did have one more prominent appearance in a penultimate episode of the series, but it wasn't an exploration of her dynamic with Danny in any significant way, as it mainly centered around him convincing her that they needed to save his cousin/clone, Danielle. Valerie appears in a series finale, but she has no speaking line, which is frustrating given the fact that Danny reveals his identity to the entire world. But instead of any exploration of how she will react to this world-shattering twist, the finale just has her smiling and clapping with everyone else, which doesn't feel in character at all. Danny x Valerie is a pairing that I wish was endgame, as it was such a fun and interesting relationship that was filled with untapped potential. However, if they were to become endgame, things such as Valerie discovering Danny's secret and Danny's willingness to lie to her would need to be properly addressed. Now, if Invincible is any indication, I imagine that many folks would hate the idea of Valerie getting mad at Danny for lying to her in this hypothetical reveal, but her anger would be 100% justified. From her point of view, she's discovering that the boy she likes is not only the ghost who ruined her life, but is also the reason why she ended her relationship with Danny. She would probably be going through a whole gauntlet of emotion such as anger and betrayal due to Danny lying to her, along with guilt as she would realize that she almost killed a guy that she liked several times. Though this hypothetical may actually be explored in a graphic novel sequel to A Glitch in Time, a book which served as a continuation of the animated series. While the book did feature Valerie, how her relationship with Danny changed after he revealed his identity to the world isn't touched upon. But with how the story ends, along with promo art for the sequel indicating that Valerie will play a more major role, we may finally be getting a proper exploration of something that the show never bothered to do. So while we may not be getting any romantic angst between the two, since Danny and Sam are still dating, we can still get plenty of juicy angst from this regardless. But what do you think of Danny and Valerie? Do you think they should have been endgame? And in what way are you hoping to see their relationship be addressed in the next graphic novel? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you'll be notified when I make a new video. Until next time, catch you later.